What's up, guys? Toad back again as usual. 1-2 day yesterday with those baseball plays. Not great. The Royals, they lost 3-1. And man, Casey Mize was not good in that game for Detroit. He put 10 men on base in like 4 innings, and somehow the Royals only wound up with 1 run out of that. Just not capitalizing on having a lot of base runners. That did not go well. St. Louis Cardinals won, and then the under in the Yankees Mariners game, forget about it. Brian Wu had a 7-1 strikeout walk ratio, which usually is indicating that you're doing something right, but he gave up 7 runs or something as well in whatever it was, 4 innings. I don't know what you can even do about it. Yeah, and Cole Reagans, by the way, for Kansas City, didn't really pitch particularly well, but I mean, he still held Detroit's offense pretty much in check. So Kansas City just failing to capitalize on chances offensively there. We'll move on to today. I mean, today is another full baseball card. It's only baseball today, and I actually seriously dislike this card. I don't know what else to tell you about this. I'm going to try to get through this somewhat quickly here. Looking at this card, I mean, a few things jump out at me. Atlanta looks like they should have a pretty major starting pitching advantage here against Cincinnati. Atlanta's up from -139 to -142 on the money line. 76% of the tickets on them. Of course, Atlanta's going to draw the public action. 65% of the cash on the other side on the Cincinnati Reds. It is in Cincinnati, so the cash discrepancy looks like it's on Cincinnati. I can't exactly tell you why that would be the case, because this starting pitching matchup, you got a situation where Atlanta has Spencer Schwellenbach pitching. He's a rookie. He's pitching really well this season, and Cincinnati still has never faced him before. So, I mean, I talk about this constantly. Broken record all the time. You have a young rookie pitcher who's never been seen before by this opposing lineup. The pitcher usually has a little bit of an edge early on because the hitters have to figure him out first. Takes a couple of times facing him to figure out what he's throwing at you. So I think Atlanta's got the edge here, but the market looks like it's against it. I would not want to play on a heavily public Atlanta road favorite like that there with the market looking like that, unfortunately. With Jacob Eunice, I don't even know if is it Jacob? I don't know. Jacob Eunice for Cincinnati. I mean, he's a guy, he's only going to give you like a few innings. His numbers are pretty good this season somehow, even though his career statistics are pretty bad. He's only going to give you like a couple innings, though, and then they're going to hand it over to the bullpen probably, and it's going to be a Cincinnati bullpen game, and you won't really know what to expect there either. I will just stay off of that. It does look like the market is indicating on the under a bit in that one, so it could be interesting there. The Mets, I think the Mets are in a bad spot. I like the idea of fading the Mets here, and the market looks like it's in agreement with me, but based on the starting pitching matchup, these starting pitchers against these opposing offenses, I can't bring myself to actually do it. The Mets, they're in a spot where I believe they're on the verge of sweeping Washington, and they have a big series up next against the Philadelphia Phillies. I can look real quick. Mets are in the thick of it, man, in the playoff hunt. And so is Atlanta, by the way. Atlanta does need to win. Atlanta's out of the wild card race right now. I think the Mets, Arizona, and San Diego are ahead of them right now. Atlanta, that's going to put the pressure on Atlanta, though. But Atlanta has to have some extra motivation potentially as well, because they're really fighting for the wild card spot. The Mets are as well, but the Mets are in one of the wild card spots right now, and they just drilled Washington yesterday 10-1. They've beaten them twice. They've held them to 2 runs in 2 games. I think the Mets could look past Washington in a spot like that where they have a rematch against Philadelphia up next, which is a huge divisional matchup compared to what this is, and they've already taken the first 2 games of the series and won the series. So I agree with the market here, which has the Mets dropping from -168 to -160. They're very public as well because they have the much better record than Washington. 83% of the tickets on the Mets, but 50-50 on the cash split there. 50% of the cash. Jose Quintana is pitching for the Mets. So we see reverse line movement on the against the Mets in the market, and the cash discrepancy in favor of Washington in the market as well. So pretty strong indicators in the market on the Washington side. Problem I have with it is, even though I don't like Quintana as a pitcher, I talk about how he's a junk pitcher. I make fun of him a lot. He's not that great. He does have decent numbers against Washington. And on the other side, DJ Hers, we have a battle of lefties here. He's a young lefty in Washington's rotation who's shown glimpses of being a decent pitcher, but his stats against the Mets offense are bad. He struggles against the Mets. They hit 290 something off him. They have good offensive numbers against him. So again, not something I want to do. Philadelphia, Milwaukee, big game as well. That series is split right now. You got both of these teams are atop their divisions, though, and have a pretty big padding in their division, so it's maybe not as big a series as it would look. Both really good teams, though, both good pitchers, and they both have good stats against these opposing lineups, too. So I was considering maybe looking towards an under with Aaron Nola against Freddie Peralta. Pretty good pitching matchup there, but it looks like the line's moved up a little bit on the total from 7.5 to 7.5. Juice to the over, so you can get more value if you do like the under there. Not one that I'm actually going to jump on, but that was my first kind of reaction to that one. And then Pittsburgh, St. Louis. This is a starting pitching mismatch, man, but it's two teams that are out of it that don't have that much to play for. But Sonny Gray, he has good numbers against Pittsburgh in his career, and he's the much better of these two starters. Jake Woodford for Pittsburgh, his stats are really terrible this season. They're not good in his career. I don't think you know what you're even going to get out of him. You might not get that many innings out of him. It might be a situation where Pittsburgh's going to go with a bullpen approach and start handing it over to their bullpen, and that just doesn't seem good to me. Their bullpen's not good. So I lean to St. Louis, but you're laying a big price. It's down from minus 195 to minus 185. They're public because I think they have the worst of the records out of these two teams, but I think the public just knows Sonny Gray a little bit, and they look at the stats, and it's so obvious that Sonny Gray is the pitcher with the better stats. I don't know what you can really do about it. They got 67% of the tickets, 79% of the cash on St. Louis, though. So I do like the St. Louis side there, but man, that is a price to be paying. And then Minnesota-Cleveland could be the starting pitching matchup of the day, man. I mean, this is a big divisional matchup. Cleveland is winning that division, but not by a ton. I think they're up 4.5 games maybe in that division over Kansas City, I believe, is still ahead of Minnesota and Detroit right now. But, man, that is a cluster of a division where you could actually, I think, with Baltimore in there, I think it's only possible you'd get two out of those three teams actually getting the wild cards, but it's very possible you get two teams out of this division making the wild card. This looks like a really good pitching matchup with Bailey Ober from Minnesota, and he's coming off not very good performance. I think it was against Kansas City. It was against some team that he doesn't have good career numbers against. He does actually have pretty good numbers against Cleveland in his career, pretty decent numbers. And Ober, I expect him to return to form with how well he's been pitching. I think it was just a minor setback in that last game against a team that historically does hit him pretty well. So I expect Ober to bounce back here. And Tanner Bibby for Cleveland. I mean, you're looking at basically the ace for both teams in this matchup here. Bibby has been really good all season, too. So that would be a game where I'd be tending to look towards an under. Total's down a little from 7.5 juice to the under to juice to the under a little bit further. The ticket percentage is at 80% on the under. Cash percentage says 100%, but I think we just don't really have the numbers on it yet. I like the under there, but Minnesota, I mean, man, they used a lot of their relief staff yesterday. And these teams have played some low-scoring games recently, too, so I don't know that you're getting that much value on the under here. And both teams do have some offensive capabilities, too. But Minnesota, with them using a bunch of their best relievers yesterday, their bullpen's not in the greatest shape, at least to play a full game under here. You could look to a first 5-inning under, which hint is maybe what I'm going to be on in the one play that I have today. It's not going to be in this game, though. Cleveland does have a really good bullpen, though. I saw one stat. Cleveland, I think, has gone all year not surrendering a lead going into the 9th inning, it's some insane stat like that, right? I think when they lead after 8 innings, they haven't blown that game going back to like last year. So that tells you how good the back end of Cleveland's bullpen is. That's crazy. That means they're winning a lot of close games too, which might mean, does that mean that Cleveland isn't quite as good as we think they are? I don't know, because it could also mean that they're so used to winning close games like this in pressure situations. That could serve them well come playoff time. Interesting there. And Detroit, Kansas City is a big matchup too. Detroit has their ace on the mound. They're up from minus 130 to minus 136, but 69% of the tickets are coming in on Tarek Skubal there. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, really, and I think he's still flying under the radar a little bit, but he is really, really good. I think people know that he is really good, but I don't think they consider him to be that like upper echelon pitcher, which really is what he is, though. Really excellent numbers. And I think he has pretty good numbers against Kansas City, too. Kansas City has Alec Marsh going. He's not a horrible pitcher. He's a decent pitcher, and he has decent numbers, mediocre numbers against Detroit, too. And 82% of the cash looks like it's coming in on the Kansas City side. I don't think I would want to fade Skubal here, but playing him at that price on the road, not totally interested in that. My Red Sox, of course, are out of it. They're below 500 now. They're not technically eliminated, but come on, man. We all know. Just give it up already. They're done. And then I did think Baltimore was a little bit interesting here. It looks like the market is against Baltimore. They're going to be heavily public in this interleague game against San Francisco. But, man, Baltimore, they lost to San Francisco, I think, really badly yesterday. So I think it was a return home spot for Baltimore, too. They were returning home, so they played a really bad game in that typically distracted return home spot. So Baltimore would be in the bounce back spot here, and they are still battling for playoff positioning as well. I think they still have a chance to win the division, although it looks like it's slipping away a little bit. They do want to remain atop the wild card, though. So I think they do have the advantage in this one. They're in a nice bounce back spot, but you're paying a price, but they're down from minus 168 to minus 164. They're public, 83% of the tickets and only 80% of the cash on them. So the market looks like it's indicating against Baltimore a little bit. San Francisco has Hayden Birdsong pitching. He's a rookie, young guy. He had some spurts this year where he was pitching okay and not allowing that many runs, but his strikeout walk numbers haven't been impressive throughout this entire season. He's just not an overpowering pitcher, really. And Baltimore has never seen him before because he is a rookie and this is an interleague game, so maybe he'll have a little bit of an edge there. But Baltimore's offense is pretty good, so I wouldn't trust Birdsong just because he doesn't have great stuff. Even though Baltimore hasn't faced him before, I don't know how much of an advantage he really is going to have here because he's not the greatest pitcher, but neither is Baltimore's pitcher here with Dean Creamer. I don't trust him either. As I have mentioned on the show many times, he's not the greatest pitcher there. He's one of the lesser pitchers in Baltimore's rotation, even though he is pitching consistently, at least as far as he's getting consistent starts, at least. Like, they're leaving him in the rotation. He's not pitching so badly that they have to look for other options. And I don't think his numbers are that bad against San Francisco either. And then Houston, San Diego's a big matchup too, just because it's basically two playoff-bound teams. Houston's got Framber Valdez on the mound, one of their better starters. He's got good numbers, and I think he has quite good numbers against San Diego too, even though I think he walks too many of these guys. His stats are not bad. Dylan Cease is on the other side for San Diego. He's been really good, one of the best strikeout pitchers this season, but he seems to be wearing down a little bit, man, so I might trust Valdez a little bit more in this matchup, and the market does look like it's indicating on Houston. Houston had that weird loss yesterday where part of the reason they lost, it was a game that came down, Houston won, actually, I think, right? I think they did actually win 4-3. It was a close game, and there was a weird situation, like one that you'll never see otherwise, where Jose Altuve, one of Houston's best hitters still, looked like he fouled the ball off himself, because if you hit the ball off of yourself and you're still in the batter's box, it's a foul ball. If it hits you and you've exited the batter's box, then it's an out because you get hit by a batted ball. But if it hits you, if you hit it off yourself, you're still in the batter's box, it's a foul ball. You're supposed to remain at the plate. That's what happened. It looked like it hit him off his own foot. He hit it off his own foot while he was still in the batter's box, so he didn't really start running to first base. The defense fielded it and threw it to first base anyway, and the umpires called him out. I mean, it makes sense. That's what you do. Like, if there's any question at all, obviously, if you're the fielder, field the ball, throw it to first base, because you never know. And the umpires actually called him out. Now, Altuve went so far as to take his left shoe off to show the umpires his foot and show them, like, I guess there might have been like a mark on it or like a welt where he fouled it off himself. And not only did the umpires not reverse their decision, they threw him out of the game for taking his shoe off. That's something you'll never see. He's shoeless Jose, man. And I'm one for the shoelessness. If you saw my Libertarian Party Georgia debate, my shoes were off. It's a power move, baby. I liked that Altuve did that. Give us some entertainment factor, baby. Let's do it. Let's go to the game I'm actually on. This is going to be a weird one. This is a total that I'm going to be on, and I'm keeping it to a first 5 inning. I think we're actually getting a little bit of value on this, even though you have to pay a little bit. I'm going Blue Jays Rangers first 5 inning under 4.5 runs, and you have to pay -125 for this. You have to pay a little bit of juice for this. I saw it at a worse price at most other books. This was at, I think, MGM Boston. They tend to have a lot of the better prices, which don't tell them that they're giving us a little bit of extra value. Maybe they're doing it to try to compete with the guys that have more notoriety, the DraftKings and the FanDuels out there. I don't know. But it seems like I can find better numbers at MGM a lot of the time. But that is what I'm going with in this one. Looking at the total, the full game total in this one was lined at 8 juice to the under, and now it's down to 7.5. I don't see the percentages on this one really yet, but this is a spot where I actually think we're getting value on the total here. I don't like the full game total just because both teams used a hefty amount of their bullpens yesterday, and I don't trust these bullpens at all. Toronto's bullpen, like outside of Green, their closer, their bullpen is pretty bad, and Texas's is not much better than that, really. And both teams used a lot of their relief pitchers yesterday. I think Toronto used 6 relievers yesterday, so I'm not playing the full game here. Bad bullpens, and the bullpens aren't very rested, so I'm going to keep it to the first 5 innings here. I actually think we're getting value on this. I think the number might be a little bit too high because people are going to overlook this starting pitching matchup, man, and they're going to look. Nobody's going to play Nobody's going to play a total in this one unless they're playing an over, and nobody's going to play a first 5 inning total in this game either, I wouldn't imagine. And this is a series where yesterday it was just an offensive onslaught. 13-8 win for Texas yesterday. Good thing I stayed off of Toronto at least because I leaned to Toronto there. And the Rangers wound up winning in a high-scoring affair there. So nobody's going to want to take an under in a situation like this, but you got to keep in mind, man, Toronto's offense is really not that great, even though they have those big names like Guerrero Jr. I think Bichette is still hurt. I saw them in person, and like I said, I was shocked how bad their offensive stats are in the last 4 or 5 of the guys they're putting out there in that lineup. It's not really great outside of those better hitters, and George Springer is putting up pretty bad offensive stats this season too. But look at the starting pitching matchup. I think these pitchers are going to be very, very overlooked in this game, man. In this starting pitching matchup, Bowden Francis is pitching for Toronto. He's a 28-year-old, and he had a late start to his career, and he was coming out of the bullpen. He only made 1 appearance in 2022. He's 28 years old, and he had his first, I don't even know if we can classify it as a full season. Last year in 2023 for Toronto, he made 20 bullpen appearances, and he put up good stats, a 1.73 ERA and 0.83 whip, 35-8 strikeout walk ratio last year. So you're thinking maybe there's something to this guy, even though he's a little bit older. And then we look at what he did this year. He started off rough. He was not doing well early this season, not putting in a lot of deep performances. He's been back and forth between relief appearances and starting appearances. But then he's really gotten into a groove recently, man. Look at these recent numbers that he's had as a starter. And these offenses that he was facing in August, this is crazy. He faced the Yankees, although he only went a third of an inning there, so that might not have been a start. I'm not really sure. Then he faced Baltimore. He had a bunch of road starts, one against the Red Sox. He was allowing unbelievably few hits in August. 1.05 ERA in August, 39-4 strikeout walk ratio, and only allowed 10 hits in 34 1/3 innings. And he's basically continuing that into this month, facing the Phillies and the Mets. That's not an easy task, even though they lost those games. They didn't score runs for him at all. He did only have a 7-1 strikeout walk ratio there. Somehow he only had 1 strikeout in that last game against the Mets, which I would say normally is a red flag, but that was an 8-inning one-hitter as well, and he only walked 1 guy in that game too. So that is still a very impressive performance. He's only allowed 7 hits in 14 innings in the month of September with a 2.57 ERA, even though he has only 7 strikeouts, but still only 1 walk in the 14 innings. He's got overall 3.5 ERA and 0.93 whip on the season. Over the last month plus or so, he's been one of the best starting pitchers in baseball, and nobody's talking about this guy. It's insane how unhittable he's been. It's wild. So I'm doing it, and I'm playing an under here, but his side of the under looks pretty good to me. Even though, well, actually, yeah, against Texas, I don't think his numbers are that good. He has a 4-4 strikeout walk ratio, but look at the rest of his stats. It's only 17 at bats, so Texas really hasn't seen him much. I don't think they've seen him this year either. Well, most of it, of course, was in relief appearances, but they're only 2 for 17 off him lifetime with no extra base hits. So Francis has held Texas's fairly decent hitting lineup to a 118 batting average and 403 OPS in their careers across facing all of their hitters, basically, at least at some point throughout their careers already. So Bowden Francis, I'm at the point where I actually trust this guy. He's come from out of nowhere. I didn't trust him, and he has proven me wrong, man. I do at this point. And then on the other side, Cody Bradford, another under-the-radar pitcher here, a young guy, 26 years old. I think he's only in his second season. He's been pitching between the bullpen and the starting rotation for Texas. Last year, he didn't have a great season, 5.3 ERA, but his 1.21 whip and 51-12 strikeout walk ratio told you that ERA was misleadingly high last year. The rest of his stats look better than that ERA did. This year, he's been doing quite well in a limited playing time. He started the season, and then I think they either sent him down or I guess he probably got hurt, because I don't know why you would send him down when he's pitching this well throughout the season. He came back up in late July, and he's been in the rotation, I think, consistently since then, and he has been good. He's got a 60-10 strikeout walk ratio on the season and only 53 hits allowed and 65 and 2/3 innings pitched. Another reason I like these two starting pitchers here is that they're not going to be worn down, because neither of them has pitched as a starter for the full season. So they've both been only doing it recently, and they're both putting up decent stats, and they're both in really nice recent form, except Bradford's most recent outing, but that was a game at Arizona. Arizona is one of the best hitting teams in baseball, and they have one of the best offensive parks in baseball as well. So I'm not going to take that much away from that. Arizona was pumped up for that World Series rematch. Based on his other stats, he allowed 8 runs in that game in 3 2/3, but he had a 4.0 strikeout walk ratio. He allowed 3 home runs, which is kind of fluky. If you look at the rest of his stats, I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to read into that much. He had one other bad start against St. Louis with 5 earned runs allowed. All the rest of his starts, he allowed 3 or fewer earned runs throughout this entire season that he's had so far. So again, like I said, I'm not taking that much away from it. Last month in August, 33-5 strikeout walk ratio, 27 hits allowed, and 34 and 2/3 innings pitched. Bradford has been a pretty good young arm in this Texas Rangers rotation. And then, like I said, yeah, he had that one bad start against Arizona. The start prior to that was another pretty good one against Anaheim. Anaheim does suck offensively, but he held them to 2 hits and 1 run in 6 innings, 4-2 strikeout walk ratio. So I expect a bounce back from him. I don't see any reason to think that Arizona start is going to continue, because he's been consistently good otherwise. And then up against Toronto, we don't have much of a sample size here. Toronto's only faced him 5 at-bats worth, although basically all of their best hitters have seen him like once, essentially, but they're only 1 for 5 off him with a double from Bo Bichette, who I believe he's still hurt. I don't even know. Is he back? I know he was hurt. I guess he is back, so my mistake. He just came back yesterday, apparently. My mistake, because I know he was hurt. I didn't get to see him when they came to Boston. So Bo Bichette is back, but I don't really care. Again, I'm not going to read that much into it. I think yesterday's offensive performances are going to basically just give you value on an under here, but Toronto's just 2 for 5 off of Bradford in their career's lifetime. They all have 1 at bat against them. 3-1 strikeout walk ratio, so 3 of the 4 outs have been by way of the K. 200 batting average, 733 OPS because of that Bichette double, whatever. I think Bradford, he's not very familiar to these opposing hitters, man. So I think it could still take them a little bit of time, a couple more times facing Bradford to actually get to figure out what he's throwing and become more familiar with him. Toronto hasn't faced him this year either. I think neither of these offenses have faced these opposing hitters this year either. So that's my one play today. That's going to be it for me, man. That's an under in the first 5 innings in Toronto, Texas. Getting a little bit creative there, getting complicated. Under 4.5 runs, -125. Of course, when you do that, I don't love doing the first 5 inning unders. I rarely do it because you get one bad inning and basically it ends the entire thing. So one fluke can kind of end the whole thing. But let's hope it doesn't happen, because the starting pitching matchup does look good for it. What's up, Eric? Thanks for hanging out in the chat, man. Yeah, you were the one guy that there were two people in. Thank you for telling me I'm passionate, man. I like that comes across, my passionate autism. Thanks, man. Thanks for the comments. I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out, the two of you who are both no longer here. I'm going to get going, and I'm Tower Gang Toad. Of course, you can check out the Tower Gang podcast. We're live every Wednesday night, so that's tonight, baby. We're the most hilarious and offensive podcast on the planet. We'll be live on Rumble, YouTube, Odyssey. We go live on all those at 9:11 p.m. Eastern. We'll make you laugh, man. It will make you uncomfortable with how offensive we are, but you won't be able to help that you laugh. It's an involuntary reaction. So go check us out, and you can sign up for our Patreon. We've had some more Patreon subscribers coming in, which is good. We like to see it. Helps out the show. All the money goes back into the show right now. It's patreon.com/towergang. We're giving you bonus content, live pre-show and post-show, which is just extra content pretty much, and you get to hang out in the Telegram with us, which I'll be in there a little bit again today. I always drop in on Wednesdays. Follow me as well. Subscribe to Better Off Dead if you haven't. Follow me on Twitter, Tower Gang Toad. I'm political shit posting. I'm talking about sports, and we got where football is in flux, man. I had a nice 3-0 NFL week this past week. My NFL is off to a decent start. 4-2, I think, is what I am in the NFL now. So far throughout the first 2 weeks. My college is a little bit worse than that. I think my college through the first 3 weeks is 4-5-1 maybe. So we got to turn that around. But football keeps going. I'm going to put out those football videos. Usually I used to do them on Wednesday, but I need sleep, so they might be coming out later in the week than that, which I have been doing this year so far, so we'll see what happens. I don't adhere to a schedule, man. I'm flying by the seat of my pants, and it's just random. You see me go live, just jump in and say hey. Have a good day, man. Peace out.